it's good to be talking with Magnus Heystek back home, both of us, after the BizNews investment conference last week. Magnus, your presentation was very well received by everybody in the audience, where you tracked the facts about investing offshore. But I guess we wouldn't have expected anything different from you, given that this is a drum you've been beating for the last 10 years. What would it take to perhaps change your mind, or would you ever change your mind in this respect, i.e., that given South Africa is a tiny part of the global economy, we should be diversifying our assets around the world?
Yes, good afternoon, Alec. My views have been from the last 11 years have been based on facts and the analysis and extrapolation of those facts as best one can into the future. And as I said at the talk, it wasn't a political view. It was based on firstly the commodity cycle taking one terrible dive, and it dragged South Africa down with it. And over time, 50, 60, 70 years, that has always been a very good indicator as to what will follow for South Africa and the stock market. And initially, the first 5 years, that's exactly what happened. The rand weakened, our resources stocks got pummeled, our economic growth was pulled down. The second part of the 10-year period, if I can call it that, had more to do with the political developments, the state capture, corruption, and everything else that we speak about on a daily basis. And surprisingly, over the second period of time, 2015 to now, the rand has been fairly stable despite being volatile. It's exactly where it is 5 years ago. Yet, the offshore markets have done incredibly better. And that is fairly ominous if the rand starts weakening. But to answer your question, and a couple of people asked me, would you advise bringing money back to South Africa? And under what conditions? And it's a very valid question, and it's one that I look out for as best I can. First of all, it's got to be a signal from government that it is turning around on its trajectory towards more state intervention, more regulation, more socialism, and more redistribution. And you need a signal somewhere along the line that the ANC admits this is the wrong way, we need to change that. So that's what one must need to look out for. Secondly, if the commodity cycle really does start turning around, one can really recommend some commodity stocks in South Africa. And thirdly, if one can have a look at an improvement in law and order, and as I said during our debate, the application of the rule of law, which is very important. And lastly, if the foreigners start buying our stocks again, you cannot discount the fact that the foreigners have been fleeing our stock market for a very long time. But if they start buying, you'll immediately see an improvement in the mood. You'll see the market lift. The rand probably will strengthen, but I don't see it yet. You're waiting for a heartbeat of a semi-comatose patient, and that hasn't happened. But it can happen. And if it happens, I'll be the first one to say, yes, now's the time to bet on SA Inc., but I don't see it yet. And I disagree with many of the large asset managers who keep on saying SA is so cheap, and now's the time to buy. I just don't see it, and the market is not seeing it. I mean, our market is now down 5-6% from its peak 3-4 months ago. The commodities have gone a little bit flat, but if the signals are there, Alec, I will definitely change my recommendation.
Yeah, I guess as the facts change, then you change your mind, as Churchill famously said. But in your presentation as well, and I don't want to go through the whole thing because it will be on YouTube very soon, but you outlined how there has been quite a lot of attacking of your views, of your person, and people getting pretty personal about that. Why do you feel so confident that the way you approach things, going public with your perspectives, is the right way to do it? You know, in South Africa, we seem to have this idea about let's talk about things outside of the public spotlight, and then we'll get to change each other's minds in that way, especially in the political sense that happens. But you've taken a very direct approach.
It wasn't meant to be directly. It was as a result of a platform that I had. You gave me a platform on MoneyWeb, on RSG many, many years ago. And when people ask me questions, I would answer them. And I didn't mean to be provocative or disagreeing with the mainstream. I gave an honest answer based on what I saw in front of me, which was blown out by other people then coming back and saying, he's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about, etc. And you realize that there's a massive amount of vested interest out there that needs protection. And that has just escalated over time. You had columnists having a go at me and magazines calling me Dr. Doom. And I say, that's fine. You can call me what you like, but give me facts that disprove what I have been saying. And they've never been forthcoming. Or if they did, very selective periods. But if you look at the 10-year picture, 7 years, 5 years, 3 years, the local market has underperformed substantially. I'm just calling out these facts. It tended to escalate by itself. Didn't mean to be controversial. I was just giving my viewpoint. And it was amazing that people got so upset about it, that I'm being disloyal and unpatriotic about South Africa. And I pointed out that most of the stocks on the JSE that have given you growth are offshore stocks. Most of the large fund managers are foreign-owned entities or owned by foreign investors. So I don't understand that argument. So, and lastly, I just thought that the public was being given a bad advice as a result of those vested interests.
What's happened to your business over those 10 years? Because I guess if you're going to be telling the truth, sometimes your business can be damaged by that.
At first, as I said at the conference, we had difficulty convincing people to externalize some of their assets and take some money offshore. And in the last 5 years, for the first 5 years, it was it was a neutral approach towards our business. The last 5 years, our business has doubled and doubled again because people have seen what we've been saying has proven to be right, and they've compared their returns with, let's say, their local investments, and the difference is so vast. They've now all bought into the story. But we do tell them sometimes people are not suited for offshore investments because there is risks attached, and more importantly, with the currency that's so volatile, it enhances the volatility of your offshore returns, and that is a problem for some people. And for some people, we straight out say, you don't belong in the offshore space. Stick in the local space and be done with it. But so it's not 100% at all costs. That's definitely not the case.
You'll remember Brian Benfield, I'm sure. At 33, he was the CEO of AA Life, which was a very significant life insurance.
I do.
He went on to WITS, where he was professor of economics. He's at some point was the chairman of the Free Market Foundation. He's written a piece, which is on BizNews today, showing the taxation of South Africa to be substantially higher than other parts of the continent of Africa. It just seems the bad news keeps on coming, because if the taxes are going to be, if you're going to be excessively taxed in South Africa, then there's not a heck of a lot left for the private sector to be able to grow the economy.
Tongue in cheek, I've been saying for many years that our largest export commodity has not been coal, gold, or chrome. It's been taxpayers. We've been exporting our taxpayers for years now, and also the children of our taxpayers. So that's where there's a vacuum developing now, in the sense that there's just no taxpayers coming through. And to have almost our entire personal income tax system based on 500,000 taxpayers is an extremely onerous position to be in. And it's a very, very shaky foundation to build our economy. And if the government doesn't address that, and they can try and spend more, but they can't increase the taxes, because people will take their money and flee. They will not reinvest into this country. And that is one of our biggest problems in the country, is our small tax base with this massive dependency base of 20 million plus. And if that tax base goes, and I read that piece, it's a brilliant piece. He summarizes it very accurately, very unemotionally. But the facts are the facts. And if they try and tax the tax base even more, we will see 10, 20, 30, maybe 50,000 high net worth individuals in this new modern world simply pack up and leave and set up base somewhere else.
But a worrying factor about this is it takes somebody like Brian Benfield, who's left the business scene, has been in academia for a long time, to actually stand up and say something which is pretty obvious and pretty basic. And you would imagine that the business community in South Africa would be waving a similar flag, but we don't hear it much from those who are actively involved in corporations. This old sickness maybe in South Africa of just don't criticize the government because they'll punish you.
Which is 100% accurate. I mean, Rob Hersov, your brilliant speaker at your conference, basically called the business people or the top guys cowards. They don't want to impact or say anything that will affect their business or their ties with government. Government is very powerful, and quite rightly, yes, Benfield, they can't touch him. We have a situation, in my view, that many of the commentators in the media, the embedded economists / analysts who work for the banks, asset management companies, dare not criticize government. It'll be a career-ending move. And it's not only on economic policies or tax or the Regulation 28 of the pensions fund. You cannot attack it. It's a career-ending move. Don't go and disturb that wonderful, cozy relationship between big business and government. And the man in the street is paying the price because they still tend to believe these articles and commentators who either work for government or have massive contracts with government. So that's where independent voices like yourselves are vitally important, that people can hear the other side. They can make up their own minds, but they have to hear the other side as well.
And an independent voice like Magnus Heystek. But one of the areas that is really fixating South African citizens is the whole pandemic, the whole COVID story, and the way that it's being handled, and whether or not the decisions, especially in the most recent ones, have been good. I know you don't hold back on most subjects. Is this one that you've got an opinion on?
Look, I've been vaccinated and I've recommended people vaccinate because I don't know more about medical stuff than the doctors and the specialists. But I think that some of the regulations and commentary coming from the medical bureaucrats, as they call them, have been way over the top. And some of the regulations introduced by government in terms of curfews and ban on liquor sales and the ban of open-toe shoes, etc., have been absolutely crazy. They make no difference. And they seem to punish certain sectors of business or certain sections of the community that they dare not mingle, they dare not have more than 50 people in a room. And the next day you have a political demonstration where thousands of people are present, or a rugby game. I mean, it's just bizarre, the application of some of those rules. And that hasn't made sense in many ways. But I have been vaccinated, and I recommend to people get vaccinated. Thank you, meneer.